7. All right, I call to order this College Township Council regular meeting for Thursday, November 16th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public open discussion? This is for things that are not on the agenda. All right, council members, do we have any new agenda item additions? Anybody? All right, moving on then. Special presentations. Special presentation number 1 from the Center Tax Agency, Jackie Fugue. Is that how you say your last name, ma'am? Yeah, okay. Fuge. Okay, Tax Services Director. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Jackie Fuge. I'm the Tax Services Director for the Borough State College. I've been there for 23 years, all of which time I've spent in the tax office. Was promoted to the director in 2018. So I'm here this evening to give you a general overview of our tax services division, and then I'll wrap up with a recap, so to speak, of some EIT and LST information pertaining specifically to the township and what we collect for College Township. So our division there at the borough, I kind of think of it as we operate as two kind of different offices. We operate as the State College Borough Tax Office for the collection of real estate taxes and local services tax. So we collect borough real estate taxes and the school district real estate taxes for the properties that are in the borough. That gives you an idea of what we collect there. $9.7 million for borough in 2022, $27.7 million in 2022 for the school district. Then for local services tax, we collect for 19 municipalities and 3 school districts. 2022, our total collections, $3.4 million. We charge a commission rate of 3%. And at the beginning of this year, our contract was renewed, and that will continue through December 2027. And then there are 2 one-year automatic extensions to continue the contract unless either party wishes to terminate. And then the other side of our division is Center Tax Agency. We operate as Center Tax Agency for the collection of the earned income tax. We charge a commission rate of 2.4%, but then at the end of the year, we reconcile to our actual costs. So if you look at the graph there, you can see our net revenue is consistently increasing. So throughout the year, we're earning much more commission than, we're earning 2.4%. Once we reconcile all of our expenses for the year, that comes in much lower. Last year, we came in at 1.44% collection, so considerably lower than the 2.4. So then what happens is we issue all of our members a refund. So last year, for example, College Township received $18,529. So to look at kind of what we do in a year, 2022, our total collections and then ultimately disbursements, $83.8 million. Most of that stays within the Center County Tax Collection District, which is Bald Eagle area, State College area, Penns Valley, and Bellefonte areas. And then we also distribute to other tax collection districts and, of course, issue refunds to taxpayers. So our existing contract, the contract between the borough and the tax collection district expires the end of this year. However, a few weeks ago, November 2nd, we renewed the contract, which will be effective January 1, 2024, and will continue through December 31st, 2028, and again, there'll be automatic extensions, so conceivably through 2030. A few changes in the contract. We were required to have the tax returns audited, all the tax returns received by May 1st of each year audited by August 1st, and it's now September 1st. Open houses, we're now going to require registrations so we can make sure we're adequately staffed for those open houses. And then we increased the bond from 18 million to 20 million so that we're covering our 2-month carrying value, which has been exceeding 18 million between April and May. This is just captures our organizational chart. I report directly to Roger Dunlap, who's the borough's assistant manager and CFO. And then I have 10 direct report tos, 1 senior tax specialist, 6 tax specialists, and 3 data entry clerks. 2 are part-time, 1 is full-time. So each year we develop a cost allocation as part of our budget cycle to account for personnel expenses related to borough versus agency functions. So 3 out of the 8 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees are devoted 100% to center tax agency. So that's related to EIT collections. Me and the senior tax specialist, who is Jason Meeker, we are the 2 certified tax officers, and we get recertified each year. So LST, EIT information and data is confidential, so we want to make sure we keep that protected. Physical, we do that by several different ways. Physical taxpayer records are stored in a secure area with restricted access to those outside of our division. Our e-applications are secured by TLS with AES protection, and the data is encrypted in transit. We mask social security numbers, and we can also use unique ID numbers in lieu of the social security numbers. Emails are password protected and encrypted, and our FTP secure server, the data is swept after 24 hours. We don't have data sitting out there. And our records are destroyed after 7 years. Also, protection of funds. We bank with First National Bank. We have 4 different accounts, one of which is a electronics funds transfer account. So that way our funds aren't commingled. We're not going to have real estate money commingled in EIT or LST. Because of the large dollar amount of our monthly distributions and the majority of our members receiving their funds via ACH, when I'm ready to initiate an ACH each month, I'll contact FMB, give them the dollar amount, and then before they do a final approval, they call back to our office to make sure that it's legitimate. Like I said, we have the electronic funds transfer account. We use that for ACH and credit card payments. Once those payments are reconciled, then they're dispersed to the appropriate tax office account, EIT, LST, real estate. Some fraud prevention services we have: positive pay, that's to prevent fraudulent checks, and debit filter exception to prevent fraudulent transactions. In addition, we have, I'm bonded for $3 million related to LST and real estate, and as I mentioned earlier, $20 million for EIT. Some general enforcement efforts that we employ for EIT and LST. We do routine delinquency work, usually done on a quarterly basis. That's followed up then with second and final notices. Wage attachments we use for delinquent unpaid invoices. The Information Exchange Program, we partner with the Department of Revenue and receive their personal income tax data and then compare it to our tax rolls to see if we're missing anyone on the tax rolls or those who have failed to file their local tax return for whatever given year we're auditing. We look at EIT to compare LST to see if people are reaching the LST threshold of $12,000 to make sure that the LST is being withheld or paid. We do the same for self-employed individuals. And then we continue to enhance our physical and digital resources. So now we'll get looking specifically at College Township. You can see here between 2016 and 2019, nice upward trend there in EITs. That's that higher number there in the blue. It dipped down in 2020. We all know why that was, right? Pandemic. And then now again, you can see we're having a pretty nice trend upward. So we're definitely on the right track there. LST is a little different story, and that's all across the board. It's pretty much, it's a flat rate. College Township's portion is $47 for each person working in the township, earning over $12,000. The total LST is $52. The school district doesn't have a wage threshold, so you're gonna, taxpayers are gonna have $5 that's gonna be distributed to the school district, remaining $47 to the township. So it doesn't matter how high, you know, with EIT, we're gonna see growth as we have higher wage earners. That's not gonna be the case with LST. That's more dependent on the actual number of people you have working in the municipality. Then we look at delinquent versus current collection. So when you're looking at the township, their collections, it averages about 2% or just under $34,000 per year. That's the portion of delinquent collections. Last year, in 2022, it increased 17.5 thousand. That's mostly attributed to auditing the personal income tax data. We audited 3 years in 2022 because there was a delay in us receiving the data due to COVID. So that's not a typical practice to do 3 years, and it's not ideal either, believe me. So. And then we'll look resident versus non-resident collections. So a non-resident is anyone who is domiciled outside the worksite PSD. So if I worked in College Township and I live in Patton Township, I would be considered a non-resident of College Township. That's how that works for local tax purposes. Employers withhold EIT based on the greater of the employee's resident tax rate or non-resident worksite tax rate. Non-resident withholdings make up approximately 6.2 or on average $107,000 per year for the township. And then this just gives us a comparison of compensation versus and net profits, I guess not versus and net profits. We see a fairly consistent filing pattern within the township. The number of local tax returns filed averages just over 5,000 each year. The majority file based on compensation only, followed by almost 17% filing on both compensation and net profits. About 4.5% filed based on only net profits, and then just under 5% file zero returns, reporting zero compensation or zero net profits. And I believe this might be the last slide. When we're looking at local services tax, as I mentioned, that's based on where someone's employed. Employers make up 85% of the LST filers, while 15% is made up of self-filers, or those who are self-employed within the district or within the municipality. Since COVID, we have seen an uptick in the number of employees working remotely. You can see in 2022, we had a 23% increase in remote employees as compared to 2021. And that trend is continuing. We've seen the same kind of trend for 2023 all across the board. And that's all I have.
On that point, Jackie, is that because those at-home employees are self-filing, or is it another way that it's reported?
There are employers who are registering with us, mostly out-of-state employers who are hiring employees to work remotely. That's the majority of the employer registrations we get are from out-of-state, and if we do our due diligence to reach out to them and make sure that they are in fact for employees working from home. And then we code that in our system when we open up that employer account. We have a special code that we use for every business, but that code we use that way we can track how many people are working from home.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay.
Bob, any comments?
The question I have, do you get a whole lot of LST refund requests? I know, because that's a real difficult tax to collect.
It is difficult to collect. It's funny that you asked, because I was sitting in my office thinking, I wonder if I should remember, look up exactly how many refund requests. I can tell you, Bob, it's not as much as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly Penn State. I would say that's the majority. People aren't they're withholding as they should be.
Right,
and
right, yeah.
Then they're not reaching that 12,000. So then
Yeah.
we're having to refund like I said, we'll be refunding.
It's just so complicated, and I know, and it's a small amount, so a lot of people don't really even think it's worth it. So I can appreciate what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Okay. Council, comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thanks, Jackie. This is great, by the way. I mean, I can't imagine. Just a general question, do all areas do this, or is this cooperative, whatever you want to call it, is it unique to the county? It seems like a slam dunk. It seems like everybody should be collecting it this way.
Well, you mean at the county level?
Like contracting with somebody to do it.
So Act 32 amended the Local Tax Enabling Act. That passed in 2008 and became effective in 2012. And so what that did was Pennsylvania had over, I believe it was over 500 local tax collectors. Yeah. And so what they wanted to do is to get, and people were doing things a little bit different across the board. And I think that, municipalities were saying, hey, we need to make sure due diligence is being done, so we're getting, the EIT distributions that we should be getting. And so that Act 32 amended that to have each county, they broke the state into districts, primarily based on the county. So we collect for most of Center County, but like Taylor Township went with Blair County, Phillipsburg Borough went with Clearfield County, Liberty and Curtin are with Clinton County, but that way it's at the county level. So every county district has its own collector.
Okay, so legislation mandated that?
Yes.
Okay, geez, I thought we were out in front of everybody.
That was a real success story. It really, I mean, that's a real success if you want to look at a success story at the state level, because it really, really did tighten things up a lot.
It really did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more quick questions. Page 3, costs are going down. Geez, why?
Well, and that's, like I said, that's in what I tried to say, that's in relation, because the EIT wages are, the collections are increasing, primarily due, not like we have all these new people filing, but like I said, as the wages increase, right?
Okay.
You're gonna get more EIT. So that's increasing, so we're charging 2.4% for that year. So we're, having the commission that we're receiving, the contracted service revenue we're receiving is a lot.
You can collect more money from fewer people as wages go up. So you
Yes.
don't need the straight up percentage. Okay, that makes sense. I
Right.
understand.
And then whenever we reconcile, and we do our due diligence to make sure we're not, spending money, on new equipment just because it looks pretty or, whatever. So, we do a pretty good job, I think, of maintaining our operating costs in particular. Personnel costs, that fluctuates with pay raises and insurance and pension, things like that, but.
All right, 2 more easy ones. The LST, if one person pays it 2 or 3 times through 2 or 3 different employers, do you catch that, or is that on the person to stop?
That really falls back to the individual to apply for a refund. In the perfect world, what they should be doing is whenever they have multiple employers is they say, this is my primary employer, and now I'm gonna complete an exemption certificate to provide to all my secondary employers, showing them proof, my primary is withholding it, so my secondary employers don't even have to withhold it.
So you don't, in your process, you don't catch that?
No, I mean, like, we might see it, but we're not automatically refunding
Okay.
back, because it really falls, we don't know at that point who the primary employer is, so it's up to the individual to,
Okay, but your process does catch people who are paying it multiple times.
well,
You see it.
we see it.
You see it.
We see it. I mean, I would have to go look at, you know,
Right.
query
That's
on
it.
someone's social security number and see exactly.
Understand.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not your job to do that. I was just
Correct.
curious whether there was an automated process that said, ooh, kick a
No,
note out to this person that
we're not
said.
there yet.
Okay.
Maybe someday.
Last question. Adam's question on the last slide about remote workers. So what I understood you to say was it's up 23% based on people who have, you have a record of the employee being employed out of state, and the assumption is that they're working remotely. That makes up the 23%. So that number could be much higher, because if you're working in Center County remotely, you're not included in that 23%.
Well, there's a little gray area in tax law. We don't have a good direction on when to consider it. Our policy is if someone's working, let's say I'm working at the borough downtown, I'm allowed now to work remote. If it's a hybrid situation, we're still counting my
Yeah.
employment base in the borough. But if I'm 100% working from my home in Patton Township, that's where the LST would go.
Okay, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's your job to come up with an accurate stat there. It just piqued my curiosity when I
Yeah.
saw that. And I
A
was just-
majority is, like I said to Adam, because out-of-state companies are hiring people
Right.
across the
Oh,
board
yeah.
to work from their homes. But we do have some within our county. Penn State has a handful of, well, more than a handful of
So
employees. but-
it's fair to say that number
It
is
does
at
include-
least 23%, because you've verified that there are 23, and there could be many more that there's just no way to,
Right.
okay, that's
Yeah.
all I
Yeah,
was.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, thanks.
absolutely.
Rich?
No, appreciate the presentation.
Sure thing. Happy to do so.
Susan?
Thank you for the presentation, Jackie.
Anthony?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Jackie?
Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on. College Township financial update. Robert Law,
Okay.
Finance Director.
I looked at last year's presentations. I'm 2 months late with my, 2 months later with my presentation for the second time of the year. So anyhow, that's why these slides are a little bit truncated, and we've also had budget discussions. But anyhow, yep, next slide, Jen.
Yeah, let me just see
Okay.
if I can, I can't, okay, there we are. I couldn't get to the top.
Yeah, we're at that time of the year here, and these are the steps. I always see one error. I'll note that here as I go through this. But the November 14th, we had, the council held their draft 2024 budget work session. Tonight, we're going to hopefully adopt a proposed 2024 budget and set a date for a public hearing. And then during the months of November and December, the proposed budget will be available for public inspection. Hopefully we'll get some input from the public on what's council's goals are financially for the coming year. And that's required by law to be available for a minimum of 20 days. And then on December 31st, not the 21st, we're required to adopt a final budget, 2024 budget. Okay, and I think as we discussed at our budget work session, we talked about real estate tax and how it's really a reliable revenue source. And you can see that as of the middle of November, we've collected all but 1.4% of our real estate taxes. And last year we were at 1.5%. And as we also discussed, when we budget real estate tax collections, we use a 98% collection factor. Because you really don't want to budget 100% of your real estate collections because it really never happens. But we've been very, very fortunate to have the collections we do. Next screen. Okay, non-property tax revenue highlights. And again, I think we touched on this at the work session. These are Act 511 taxes. Property transfer tax, we budgeted 515 and we're projecting 620. EIT, budget $2,025,000, projecting to 108. And local services, we budgeted 728, and we're looking at a projection of a little bit lower than that amount. So those are very, they performed really well in 2023. Then there's a couple other revenues that I want to note. Our revenue from our Penn State Events Impact Fee Agreement. That was, again, that's one of those ones that you just really can't, it's not as reliable, obviously, as what the real estate tax is. That came in $315,000 higher than budget. A good year, a lot of zoning permits were issued, 73,000 over budget. And yeah, the investment income just took off this year. It's just it's up right now. I think the funds are earning about 5.5%, something like that. And last year we were like less than 1% or around 1%. So it's, and yeah, it's just been incredibly productive this year. And then we invested heavily this year. You can look down through there, just a number of things we did. The HVAC controls upgrade, the building walkway heating systems is hopefully going to happen this year yet.
Just about
A number of dump trucks we got, and again, that sounds like a lot, but there's some real serious supply issues out there, and the council's aware of that. I know Amy's has brought you up to date on that, especially the two we bought that are waiting now for the bodies to be put on the chassis. The lawn tractor and trailer, a number of road projects, the office exterior, and the Center Hills traffic calming project. That came in at $104,000, and of that amount, $50,000 is being paid by the developer for that, towards that project. And then the starting of the storm water piping inspection program, and that's going to carry on for a couple of years yet. And then we also have $55,000 in playground equipment in Spring Creek and Mountainside Parks, and we put a deposit down, and fingers crossed that can happen in December. Amy says that likely it's going to be delayed until spring. But if we have a good December with very little snow, that could still happen in that month. So that's up in the air. And the last slide is our website has a wonderful array of things for you to look at: township budgets, capital improvement programs, our independent audits, opportunities for public service, and signing up for the electronic notifications.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Questions? Council? Anthony?
Sid, Bob, I failed to ask the other night, and when you had the one slide up there about real estate taxes, and when we were talking about impact fees, if I'm not mistaken, years ago, we did a comparison of, we'll say, like if there were Penn State real estate transfers, the taxes that we didn't get or taxes lost, in the comparison to the impact fees, to show that it's still probably a fraction of, what we don't get in the township, if you will. I don't know if that data is still easily accessible or not, but I think it would be interesting.
We could probably actually, we don't have that at hand, but there's roughly between 24 and 26% of all property that is in the township is non-taxable property. The majority of that.
I can give you that number here.
Yeah, and there is an associated assessment value related to all of those. those properties as well.
That's correct. We have, let's see here, a grand total assessed value of, in 2023 in the duplicate was $680,000, or $680 million. Of that amount, $220 million is exempt from the real estate tax. And that's the hospital, that's the Penn State, that's, and I'm bringing out some smaller entities, but that's the bulk of it. So, that brings our actually assessed value, which is the amount that taxes collected on or calculated on, down to $460 million. And then there's an agreement with Penn State where they have a number of properties up there which have some commercial use. And so the county does a schedule, and they highlight those areas, and every municipality has a tax equivalent that we get some money back from from the county for Penn State in lieu of taxes, and that's about $27,000 or something like that in property taxes. Yeah.
No, thank you. I just, I knew it was, Penn State was the largest. I mean, there's other entities as well. But like when we.
Agriculture.
I think in the past, when we looked at that data, it was because when I think we were having negotiations with Penn State and the impact fee. And just showing the comparison, the difference that the impact fee still doesn't really play out to a real estate tax. Thank you.
All right. Susan?
I think, so a philosophical question about the properties that are not taxed. So we have, you brought up a good point, we have the impact fee that we capture from Penn State, but we have other properties, other entities that don't pay taxes. And so philosophically, the value there is that they're employers, there's local service tax, just trying to understand the value of those properties and how they contribute to the township. Am I asking the question right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I understand the question. Absolutely. I mean, and we heard tonight, we have various
Right.
components, earned income tax, local
Right.
services tax, from employment that is generated by those. In addition to that, the township has actually struck payment in lieu of tax agreements, memorandums of understanding, with places like the hospital, for example, and places like Research Park, which again is a Penn State entity. But we actually have separate agreements specifically covering those two particular entities, which likely are the largest non-taxable entities
Right.
that we deal with, to provide a portion of what otherwise would be collected in the form of real estate taxes from those two very specific organizations. So there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Bob, in 2023, I believe we received about $33,000 from the hospital.
Yeah,
And
so-
almost a similar amount or slightly
They're
larger
very close, yeah. The,
from
right.
Research
And that's in
Park.
addition to the taxes from
In addition,
the people who
that's-
are
Yeah.
employed and.
Then you have the buildings that are taxable that are built on top of the land, on the land that is not taxable. It's very complicated.
It is complicated, and the nonprofit tax status, there are obviously requirements that those organizations must meet in order to maintain that nonprofit tax status, and so.
That's correct.
And that's monitored.
Yeah, there's a tax code that they have to fall under.
Yeah, we typically do not get
Right.
into the monitoring of the 990s and
Sure.
those types of things, but yes, you're absolutely right, that falls. Now,
Assessment
I don't know
office.
to what, they certainly, and by the way, the Center County Tax Assessment Office, I think does an outstanding job with this, what Bob has just described, keeping track of the individual entities that are conducting private business on, or in,
Exempt buildings.
facilities owned by Penn State, for example, is no small feat. Cell phone towers, cell towers, ATMs, et cetera, et cetera. It's complicated, and I think that the Centertown County Tax Assessor's Office does a fantastic job of inventorying those properties and creating a list. Equally, I will say that our zoning department, and in particular Susan Hetzel, does an outstanding job in making sure that the county's list is accurate. So we have a very good working relationship there, and Susan does a great job as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
That helps me start to understand the confusing process. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
No, it supports our meeting from Tuesday. Thank you.
Yeah, listening to Bob's numbers, it sounds like we're more around 30% now. If he's talking 680 and 220, 680 being the 220, 680 being the total assessed value,
Yes, correct, yes.
220 being tax exempt?
Yes, correct, yeah.
That's about a third of the 680?
Yep.
That's not insignificant.
No.
It is not.
And then lastly, I guess, I wasn't aware of the county effort. Does an entity like C3 fall into that? In other words, the revenue we get from the, no,
No, we collect amusement tax on
on their events?
their events.
Okay.
But they are a nonprofit, so they do not
Understood.
pay real estate tax.
I'm just trying to figure out an example of an entity then that would be covered with what we get from the county. We're getting our own from the hospital, from Penn State. So this amount that Bob referred to, that's $28,000,
Yeah, that would be, for example, if there was a cell tower at C3.
okay, all right. So
That is a private entity, otherwise taxable on a
on the
non-taxable
okay,
piece.
that's what I was looking for.
There's one other one too. There's utilities that we get the equivalent, a tax equivalent of the value of a utility property in the township. And that's
That's
a smaller
much
amount.
smaller amount.
Yeah, a smaller amount.
That's what makes up that 28. Those are the kinds of things that are in that group.
Yes, correct.
Subway at Pagula.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one, that's a good one.
Okay.
On that too, like, the prison property, doesn't the state give us some funds too in lieu of taxes? Does
Not
that
on,
happen?
Not the prison.
not on the
Not
prison
state
property.
lands at all? No?
Oh,
Now, we do
get,
receive, we
yeah.
do receive a sliver, well, there's a couple,
But it's not nearly what we would
55
get from
cents
the
an
other
acre or
ones,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
do we
Yeah.
get that?
We do, it's a couple $100.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, there are a couple
Yeah.
of nominal revenue sources that we do receive. For example, we receive a very small portion of funds, revenue, as a result of Marcellus Shale. It's a few $1,000s a year. A lot of our, not so much College Township, but a lot of our neighboring townships, Harris Township in particular, receive small amounts of revenue for the state forest land, which is very similar then
Right.
to our Rockview.
Our state.
Correct,
land,
our
right?
state,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
So yeah. There's a lot of small individual pieces.
Yeah.
And then there's some much larger
There's
pieces.
a lot of employees that work at those tax exempt properties that we get, that live in College Township or non-residents of College Township, and we give them a non-resident tax. That's another complicated thing, but local services tax. You know, we're really high up there in the state as far as the amount of local services tax that we get as a municipality. We're way up to this. And, yeah.
Just one other editorial comment, if I may. As we participate in particular with the Pennsylvania Municipal League, you will hear from time to time issues that arise from cities, smaller cities, about the issue of taxable versus non-taxable. So there are small cities that have significant non-taxable properties affiliated or located within their domain. State College Borough is one. A substantial percentage of the property that is in the borough is completely tax exempt. It's even more obvious and even more stressful for other communities that have smaller colleges than a Penn State University. And the amount and the burden that puts on some of those municipalities is really significant. So we're very fortunate while we have the university and it is non-taxable property, we've managed to carve out a few ways to generate some of the revenue and recapture, to Anthony's point, some of that revenue. But we also are blessed with a relatively wide variety of residential, commercial, and industrial activity and other employment activity here that helps to balance some of that out.
Okay. Anything
Something to
else,
keep in
anybody?
mind.
Anything else, Bob?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to the manager's update.
Yes, I actually have no additions to make since the last report 2 weeks ago. We've been involved in budget. The only thing that I can say very quickly about the solar power purchase agreement, we just received the additional invoicing for the added legal review, and I believe that the township's invoice was for just under $500 or just over $400. It wasn't very much. The Water Authority received one for about $950. So I do know that those invoices for those legal services, as was described at a previous COG meeting, have now been issued, and so we'll be making those payments in accordance with our participation agreement.
Questions for the manager? Comment? Okay. Let's move on to COG, Regional, County, and Liaison Reports. Susan, you want to lead us out?
Sure. The CTIDA met yesterday. I gave you a detailed report, so I won't go through all the details, but the report out from the executive director was especially impressive and worth mentioning. She's hit the ground running. She's doing a lot of work with the board, working with the committees. She's out doing a lot of relationship building with the clients of the CTIDA and working with partner organizations. Anthony, you may want to speak to that too. The committees are hard at work on various things. They reported out nicely yesterday with their notes on the different activities in the different committees. They're working on developing policies, really working together. And marketing mentioned that they now have a LinkedIn site. So the CTIDA has a LinkedIn site that they have up and going, updating the website and really looking at better ways to both reach out in the community for clients and to increase awareness, but also looking to get more board members. They're down, I believe, 3 board members. They need to have 9 board members. They still have 6. So they're looking to also brainstorm that. So, any questions?
Questions for Susan? Okay, I'll hit next. I had a Spring Creek Watershed Commission meeting last evening. The biggest thing I just want to highlight for you guys is, the watershed took care of kind of end of the year business, kind of wrapped up some things like that. But the biggest thing I want to highlight is in the Q1 of 2024, we're looking to have a state of the watershed presentation kind of meeting and summit that will likely you'll receive an invitation to. So we'll see how that develops, but hopefully that's something that we can bring in some educational opportunities, folks that work in the watershed. Last evening we received a very good educational topic about that was co-led by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Trout Unlimited, and College Township was sort of the star of that show. Lots done in the Hounsville area, right, along Spring Creek, along the Spring Creek Estates property that the township has. Let me know. I think we can share that, and I think we're sharing that on our website, but if that's something you guys want to see, just let me know. It's a pretty good presentation. Rich?
Yes, the Finance Committee met, COG Finance Committee met this morning. Mr. Long and I spent some time together. Along with our regular business, we received the 2022 audited financial statements. Those were received and recommended to the general forum for approval. We then moved into the budget comments from all the municipalities. The majority of comments were forward-looking in things we need to do on future budgets. The few items that were directly related to this year's budget, one was from Ferguson Township regarding pulling the staff assistant at the Parks Admin and Active Adult Center back out of the budget. That had been put back in at above the 8.05 guideline. That motion to do that failed. The other item was the College Township item with regard to utilizing any non-restricted fund balance available. The other one was the CCMPO item, which was approved or recommended to be put back into the final 2024 summary budget. Obviously, you'll be seeing that at the general forum this month with the intent of an approval, as historically COG doesn't meet in December. We reviewed final steps after the 2024 budget. In particular, we identified several items that we pushed forward to the executive committee asking for action by bodies other than finance. One of those is the COLA calculation. That went to HR, is supposed to be going to HR. It's already at HR, but we formally said it again. The fund balance policy, that was pushed to the municipal finance directors again. The healthcare premium split and utilization of insurance reserve, that was pushed to the HR committee. The process for withdrawal from various contracted services with the COG, the example for that this year was local planning. COG staff received a request to reduce local planning 3 days before the budget was published. That isn't very conducive to a good budgeting cycle. The other thing was, and that was pushed to COG managers and the exec committee. The other item was to have a discussion about the data used for the COG formula. For those not aware, one of the municipalities had a little trouble getting the data that is used in calculating that, and it caused a delay in the budget, but even more so if it hadn't been available by the time of the publishing of the budget, it could have created a lot of issues. So we felt that needed to be discussed by the managers and the exec committee. Finally, there was a request to review janitorial services across the COG, and that was pushed to the facilities committee. So that was a lot of stuff. The next item was the Parks and Recreation mobile concession. If you recall, a budget amendment was done last year, I believe it was last year, to purchase a concession vehicle to the tune of about $132,000. The new agency director has reevaluated that with the staff, and they came back with a request to repurpose $25,000 of that to buying 2 food carts for the 2 regional pools. There was discussion on that about only doing 1 at a time. That motion failed, and it was the amendment to do the 2 carts not to exceed $25,000 was approved. There was a second part of that, the remaining balance of the $132,000, roughly $107,000, on what to do with that. And that was to be discussed today, but the discussion on the carts went so long that we actually deferred that to a future meeting. Finally, the energy procurement agreement was discussed because of the delays in the solar power purchasing program. we're in a position that we need to extend our current energy contract. We received the bids of today. It's a very volatile market. It changes every day. So my understanding is, from a process standpoint, we moved it forward so that the general forum can take action on the then current numbers the day before the general forum meeting. So you will be seeing something on that at the general forum meeting to discuss extending that because of the delays in the solar power purchasing. I think that's it.
Yeah, that was, I can't think of anything else that was covered. That's pretty much it.
Eric, did you have any meetings?
I'm sorry, one note, Dan Gerino chaired the meeting today. It's his next to last as an elected official, so he chaired the finance committee meeting today, so thanks.
No, I had a question for Rich. The carts, would they be restricted solely to the pools?
No, they would be primarily located at the pools, but they will be, the intent is that they could be relocated to.
So an event that is in September after the pools close that.
These are
Absolutely,
like
or even.
random carts, like hot dog carts?
Yes, yeah, and there's a whole menu, and I mean, you're gonna see it at the general forum, but there's a very good presentation, you know, the food truck menu versus the food cart menu, the finances of it, and all that good kind of stuff. I think they did a good job.
No, I think
in
it's
making that
interesting
case.
because 2 carts at 2 places simultaneously could be more effective than a single truck at only one of those places.
That's correct.
Even though the single truck might offer,
A broader menu,
yeah.
Yeah, no, those are discussion. What'd we spend today, Bob? About an hour,
15
hour
minutes.
and 15 minutes on a
Yeah.
$25,000
Well, we're not
set
gonna
of food
do
carts. Oh, don't be surprised. But that was a point that was definitely made. And because, you know, pool membership gets you access to either, that was made. One of there was a lengthy discussion about trying to get food trucks to come to instead, but you know, if you've worked with food trucks, the economics just aren't there to be 7 days a week. And so this fills a nice void. The other thing I will share that I brought up is a little bit of an equity issue. Food trucks aren't cheap.
Right.
And so there's an opportunity with the food carts to provide some affordable, similar to Oak Hall, what we've seen at Oak Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing, it could be supported by our scholarship fund, you know, to make sure that we have an equity situation there as well. And it's there 7 days a week. Or
There was a
when they're
question
open.
too about charging a fee to the vendors.
Right, well, with the food trucks, there was a discussion, the current policy is a 10% commission on the food trucks. And again, the economics of the food trucks are difficult enough, the 10% is difficult. I think there was a sentiment that we should really try to reduce or make that go away if they support our events and everything. So they're gonna evaluate that aspect, they're gonna evaluate food trucks as well as the carts, the availability of the carts all the time. So, like, it was the longest discussion of the day,
It was.
despite having some pretty important stuff. But we did well. We got
Alright.
through it.
Well, let's push that cart to the side and move on.
Food.
All right, anything else?
Just an update. By the way, if you recall when we first talked about that, it was a very long discussion.
Oh,
We
it's
talked
the
about-
truck itself?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
The MPO update, 4 of the municipalities have done this, or 3 other additional municipalities have done the same thing that College has done. So there's 4 of the 6 in the center region MPO. I don't know about Ferguson, I don't know about Half Moon. Just a quick update on,
I can give you that.
Oh.
Ferguson in support, Half Moon voted against the budget as a whole.
okay. But I think for the general forum, it's really just a majority
Correct.
vote. So regarding facilities, it was canceled in November. It's very likely to be canceled in December, but we did, the chair and I and Eric Nornberg did follow up on a lead that Rich had given us to introduce, but potentially use one of our facility committee meetings to bring in a professional that he ran into at PML to give us a little bit of guidance on what our options are for developing a comprehensive facilities master plan.
Cool.
And we're interested because we think it dovetails nicely with our immediate goals, which are to help the director craft a job, what do you call it?
Job description.
To update the job description, yeah.
Job description for a facilities project coordinator job. So we think we can help the master plan process along without waiting for facilities project coordinator to be on board, which would probably be April or May.
Okay.
So, thanks.
All right, PC, got anything? All right. Staff, other committee reports? No? Oh, I'm sorry, I totally forgot anything.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I know, I saved you for best for last because I read your
Well,
report.
I apologize, I didn't do a report, but I forwarded Shelley Maddow. She outlined some of the, so climate action sustainability met the other day. One of the biggest topics of discussion is the waste management contract that's approaching. It is going to come before the general forum this coming Monday. So she highlighted some of the significant changes. I just want to highlight some of the, I'll say, what I think are significant changes, that may impact. So I'll preface it in the sense that the discussions that we've had, mind you, they had a consultant work with them for this contract and the RFP. There's going to be a lot of educating the citizens, and the committee feels that they have a year to educate the citizens on some of the things that we're putting in the proposal. So some of the changes or significant changes we'll see. And my comments were, I think the municipalities may be fielding a lot of calls should this go through, but I think when it comes up to the discussion on Monday at the general forum, I just noted that there probably may be some questions with that. And the other thing along the same lines of the bulk collection would be Christmas tree collection. That could be, they could put a proposal in for that, or they don't have to either. But there's really no backup plan should they not propose it. And these were all recommended by the consultant who feels we would get more bids or attract more bids by the haulers to have these options left out. Those I think are significant. The other one I would note, I don't really see, I know we tried it in the past as a center region, would be automated cart collection for curbside refuse. I actually think maybe it wasn't the time then, but it probably is the time now. It's not necessarily a bad thing. What they're proposing there. And then lastly, where I just noted to point out would be, where did I highlight that? I'm sorry. They added an annual CPI adjustment to refuse collection rates and rates for any of the optional additional services. So if you read through her memo, they're mainly numbers 2, 3, and 4 that would be highlighted there.
Questions for Anthony?
Is the solicitation being structured as an RFP or an IFB with options?
It's an RFP. That was the initial discussion. They weren't sure whether to go RFB or RFP. There were a few folks that weren't sure what the difference was. The RFP at least puts it in favor that we can pick and choose. It gives us more flexibility, so we did go down that path, so it's an RFP.
But the things that you're noting are suggested that they be in the RFP, or are there requirements for the RFP?
It's not required, it's optional. It's listed as optional. So if the hauler wants to place that in their proposal, or they can just say no, or NA.
So what's the subjective part of the RFP? If they're either including these things for a price or not, where's the judgment part of it?
Exactly, that's all I can
It
respond.
just seems, like you're kind of doing,
The thought process, I mean, I understand, but the thought process here is, I'll say, throughout the entire discussion, the thought process is how can we curb trash removal?
okay, so maybe, and I want to ask Adam's question about the private streets too, and, I mean, that applies to
Yeah.
you directly.
Exactly.
For example, if they don't even address that in the RFP, that's not a deal killer, that just rates them lower?
Correct. So it came up about private streets and, and mainly in the discussion about private streets is how it came up was if, with automated cart collection, if the arm can actually come out. So my street, it's not wide enough that an arm can actually come out. They would have to get out and, take the cart from there. But it came out in the sense that I guess ADA, you can have, or if someone's ADA, they can come up that street and collect the cart and so forth. If you're not, you can pay a fee to have them come up the street and go from there. As far as private streets, even though the road's not maintained by the township and so forth, they can still go up and collect. It's supposed to be a lower cost, I guess. They still have the options.
Okay. I mean, if the committee is happy with that structure and they think you're going to get what they want, then that's all that really matters. This is also, you expect to get more competition.
More competition, correct.
Okay. All right, moving on into DEIB.
Yes, I do have a couple of items here. So this month is National Native American, American Indian, and Alaska Native Heritage Month. And I'll also note that today is the last day of the 5-day Hindu religious festival, Diwali, which is a festival that symbolizes the victory of light over darkness. So those are two items. And I also believe, I know that at least one school district in the county was acknowledging grief awareness today as well. So that was something that at least at one elementary school I know was ongoing. So that is my report with respect to DEI this evening.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. So we have on the consent agenda tonight, CA1 consisting of letter A is minutes approval of the November 2nd, 2023 regular meeting. Letter B is the November 8th, 2023 special joint council and PC work session. CA2, there is none, and CA3, there is none. Do any members wish to pull any of these items?
Well, is anybody going to say it? This is 2 meetings in a row.
No.
We don't want to jinx it.
Sorry, there's already 2 things on next month's agenda.
Okay.
It's over.
If there is no one wishing to pull anything, we'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. All right, moving on to the agenda. Old business number 1, College Township 2024 budget. Adam Brumbaugh.
Yes, I'll give Jen a moment here to pull up our presentation, but as Bob had described as part of his slides this evening, tonight College Township is going to consider the adoption of the proposed 2024 budget. This is a step in our legislative process to get us to an approved budget by the end of the year for 2024. So essentially, and Bob also touched on the fact that assuming that we end up with the proposed budget this evening by council action, It'll be available over the next 20 days, at least at a minimum, for review by the public, and that will all culminate in a public hearing at the Thursday, December 21st, College Township Council Meeting. We'll have a public hearing, take any comments on the 2024 budget, and then proceed to consider that document for the beginning of next year. So with that, real quick, we'll do a 2023 year in review. And in 2023, there was no property tax increase despite 40-year high inflation levels. That said, in both 2020 and 2021, we had about 0.7 of a mil collectively had been raised. So it's been since 2021 was the last actual property tax increase in College Township. We do anticipate a return to normal revenue collections for a variety of our accounts. For example, such as the PSU impact fee, which again, Bob had spoken about a little earlier this evening. And I also want to mention the ARP funds, the American Recovery Plan funds. We received a little over $1 million in ARP funding. That came in two tranches in 2021 and 2022. For the construction of the 2022 budget, we used about $350,000 of those funds for revenue replacement, which is an eligible use of the ARP money. And again, in the 2023 budget, we used about $250,000 to assist in the construction of the budget. Just as a note, I can tell you that in 2024, we're using only about $55,000 in ARP funds. Will be part of the 2024 budget process. But continuing on with the 2023, this current year, we had a 5% cost of living adjustment for employees, and a maximum of 1% merit was also distributed based on performance evaluation scores. And we experienced a 9.3% increase in our health insurance premiums. As far as where we stand relative to our revenue collections in the 2023 budget, again, these are items that were addressed or touched on by Mr. Long previously. As stated, the PSU impact fee was $315,000 over budget in collections, which is exceptional. Real estate transfer tax was up by $105,000, and zoning permit fees that we collect for various work around the township was up over $73,000 over expected. And again, major projects that we had undertaken, we had actually completed in 2023 both the, and finalized, I should say, both the Pike Street Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects. We had a dedication in April of 2023 of that project. We also completed the Center Hills traffic calming project with the speed humps on both Oak Ridge Avenue and Shamrock Drive. And the Dale Summit Area Plan and our form-based code development is well underway. So very quickly, in summary here, in 2023, we had budgeted about $11 million, a little less than $11.5 million in total expenditures. Yes, I'm sorry. Those are budgeted expenditures. We're projecting to have spent about $9.8 million there. So we walked away after conclusion of this year not spent almost $1.6 million. And that's broken down through our general fund, our fire protection fund, road machinery, parks and rec library, state highway aid, which is our liquid fuels funding that we receive, our debt service, and our construction funds. So moving on to 2024. Very pleased to report that, again, the 2024 budget is constructed does not include a real estate property tax increase. The proposed millage will stay the same as 2023, which is 6.10 mils, so no change there. There were some slight modifications that were made to some of the fund millages. Each of these funds receive some portion of real estate property taxes that are collected. We did do some manipulation of those millages simply to get the money in the right fund to cover anticipated expenses for 2024. And speaking about our revenue sources in 2024, those revenues come from a multitude of places. As you can see on the chart here, property tax makes up the significant amount, about 28.4%. Mr. Long had talked previously also about the Act 511, the enabling taxes, which are the earned income tax, local services tax. That represents about 34.6% of all of our revenue. Debt makes up about 5.3% of revenues to be utilized in the 2024 budget. Then we have intergovernmental transfers. Those would be direct payments from the state for things like pension, things of that nature. That's about 14.5%. And then we have charges for fees and services. And these would be things like the zoning permits that were mentioned earlier. That's about 7.2%. And all other sources, which is just over $1 million, about 10% come from those other sources. So all in all, $10.2 million is anticipated in revenue for the 2024 calendar year. As far as spending, one of our more significant outlays of dollars, about 1.67 million, 14% have to do with police protection. We have about 4.8% of our total outlays go toward debt service. We have almost 30% of our expenditures are identified in pursuit of capital projects. So those would be signal work, it would be road paving, those types of things, and also any equipment purchases that we might have. Our Center Region COG obligations, there was a fairly significant increase this year of about 12.2% over last year in the overall amount of those obligations. But that represents about $1.65 million, so almost the same amount as our police protection. And again, that's just under 14%. Then payroll and benefits, basically about $3 million, which is about almost 25% of our expenditures. And all other spending, which would be technology, utilities, insurance, all of those types of things represent about 13% of our expenditures. So we're anticipating a total spending of almost $12 million, $11.97 million, which is not quite what we have identified here as our revenue of $10.2 million, but the township is in significantly good enough financial position that through the use of fund balances that we'll be able to address any shortfalls in revenue based on projected expenditures. So just a couple of quick items to mention here, some of the more significant things that are within the budget document. We have equipment replacements of about $291,000. The road projects just previously mentioned, about $557,000 worth of work that we'll be doing this year. Signals and signage. This continues to be a rather significant area of growth in the township. We have, at last count, and someone's going to correct me, I believe that there are 27 traffic signals in College Township, and each one of those signals we are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep and providing the electricity to all of those signals. And we have our signals in a cycle where we try to upgrade our cabinets every 5 to 7 years. We're going to be looking to try to extend that period from 7 to 10 years, the life of the signal cabinets, because they're very expensive. Some of this number, and it's a big number, some of this number actually represents past years' orders that have yet to be filled for the construction of the cabinets. So it is these are difficult items to get our hands on. They all need to be built from the ground up. And so the combination of what we're still waiting on, plus what we are going to be doing this year, contributes to that larger number with respect to the signals. Our buildings and groundwork is about $161,000. We have other projects that include stormwater. It includes what we have been referencing as Phase 3 of Pike Street. And you may remember that as part of a turnback program. The township has received a little over $820,000 from PennDOT to make improvements to the balance of Pike Street from College Avenue to Dale Street. And we will be underway with that in 2024. And there's a variety of other sidewalk projects, things like that, that are included in this $1.2 million figure that you see here on the slide. And our own local parks and recreation, which does not include any of our COG obligations, equates to about a little over $200,000 that we'll be spending on parks and rec. The only other thing, and this relates to the second item that I asked you to put in, and we'll come back to this last slide eventually, but the only other thing that I wanted to mention is that the only item that was placed on the website under supplemental this evening related to the budget is the budget summary that was shown under tab 2 of the budget workbooks. So I just wanted to point out that, and Jen may or may not be able to pull that up, and it's okay. I'm not really.
The right way is all.
I'm not necessarily going to reference it, but I just wanted to make the public aware that if anyone is looking for a budget document, the only thing that they will see on our website at all related to this packet, this meeting, is going to be this particular document. And it's a spreadsheet that shows all our various funds, all of our fund balances, our revenues in, our expenditures out. So it's really a good summary document. Very difficult to read here up on the screen, but if anyone is looking for information right away, this is going to be the only information that's actually available. Assuming that we end up with proposed budget here tonight via action by council, we'll have the opportunity to get the entirety of the budget uploaded and available and begin that 20-plus day public inspection of the documents. So I just wanted to alert everybody that if they're looking for something more at the moment, this is the only thing that is out there relative to the 2024 budget. So,
and if you sign up for the e-alert as soon as we post the draft budget or the proposed budget, you will get a notification that it's up on our website with a direct link to where that's at.
right, which is why it's important for people to sign up for those notifications.
Right.
Absolutely. So that is a very quick overview. Bob and I are prepared this evening to discuss any particulars, any questions that council may have. We did have, in my opinion, a very good budget workshop meeting on Tuesday evening. We had other members of the staff that were available to answer any questions that the council may have. There were relatively few significant changes that were made on a Tuesday night's workshop meeting or suggestions. There were a few of those that were made that were followed up. And I also believe that part of the full budget document includes a variety of appendices. Mm-hmm. And I believe, Bob, that we've actually distributed some additional schedules.
Yeah, on the table at each seat is a list of the appendixes and which ones are new, which ones have been revised. So it's all right there. Basically, just take out, put in, and there's still one one hanging out there that didn't have time to get it done, so, and it's noted on the list there, so that'll be forthcoming shortly.
That's all supplemental information. It
Correct.
helps to explain some of the other numbers that are in the budget, but a lot of it is good reference material. So I believe that between the actual line items and the narratives that we have provided, that the public has the information that they need through that alone to understand what this document is and what it does. But the appendices are helpful, and as I said, they provide a lot of good information that otherwise doesn't show up in the budget document.
Okay.
And that's the very quick overview.
All right, questions, comments on the budget? Rich?
I just think, one item of note, I think it's important to share with regard to the impact fee. We're talking about it coming in over budgeted and everything like that, but from a budgeting standpoint, from lessons learned from 2020, the number that we put in the budget is conservative.
Right.
And everything, and I think that's an important change from previous years and everything. I did, from our Tuesday meeting, I did have two morning afterthoughts that I would share with council. I've already shared with Bob and Adam. On our capital reserve page, there was a straggler down at the bottom of a -50 on a capital reserve page, which seemed a little odd, and we
I know what that
questioned
is.
it. Yeah, no, you
Yeah.
already answered it, but
Okay.
I made a suggestion of moving it up.
Okay.
So it's with regard to Aspen Heights, just move it up in with Aspen Heights. That was a suggestion I made. The other suggestion is with regard to the fire relief items that are currently washing through our general fund. It seems consistent, more transparent to have those things under our fire budget and everything. They're a wash. It doesn't gain us anything, but that's where, similar to parks. All our park stuff is in parks, all our fire stuff's in fire, and it may be too late for this year, but for next year, if a suggestion.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Eric?
Just one. Adam, the last page that showed highlighted
Yes.
segment, shows $200,000 in 2024 for Park and Rec. It says excluding COG. We show about 60,000 for local parks in the capital plan, so
There is $150,000 of the Spring Creek Park resurfacing of both the basketball courts and the tennis courts that are related to the DC. We received a DCNR grant.
Okay.
And we will need to match the overall amount, and that would be the balance of those funds.
Okay.
Are those in the construction fund or the,
No, they are in the Parks Fund.
okay, good,
Yes.
thanks.
So it's $50,000 showing up in our capital improvement plan and $150 showing up in the general fund of our operating budget. If I heard you correctly.
The grant was shown, the grant revenue and the expenditure was shown in the Park Fund for that DCNR
In the
grant.
park fund,
In the
okay.
Park
Yeah,
Fund, yes.
as well as the
Correct.
balance of expenditures for our own parks.
Correct,
Would
yes.
be in the Parks Fund. I'm sorry, didn't follow.
I got it.
Got it? Anthony?
No, thank you.
Susan?
No, thank you for all the work.
I don't have any further comments either. Thank you. Does anyone like to venture to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Do you have a, oh.
I'm just
I
nodding
move-
slowly.
I move to adopt the draft 2024 township budget and authorize staff to advertise it for public comment public comment on said budget, including the advertisement for a public hearing as part of our December 21st council meeting.
You have a motion. Anyone second that?
Second.
All right. Call to question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, none opposed.
Thank you very much. I do want to thank Bob and his staff for doing a great job. Also, shout out to Mike Bloom, the assistant manager as well, for his assistance this year. Good teamwork. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, there is no new business. Staff informatives, informational only. Staff want to highlight anything there?
We did receive our liquid fuels audit report, clean audit. If there's any questions, we can try to answer any of those that might come forward, but we've done a good job accounting for the funds that the state has entrusted to us.
Okay. Council or staff, other matters?
Hey, I had a question on staff informatives.
Yep.
I don't have a paid subscription to the CDT, so I only see the headlines that said Jersey Mike's location coming. I now see that at least a land development plan has been submitted.
That's correct. Actually, Planning Commission will see the land development plan at its next meeting, and sometime in December, we're anticipating that would be before council for final review.
Okay, so that narrows it down to College Township
Yes,
location.
it is cut in College Township,
Okay,
along Shiloh Road.
okay, thanks.
I'm sorry.
No, that was, yeah, I don't always read as the headlines.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, you can't read the story. I had the same thing, unfortunately. Yeah.
I see.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just a reminder of our ABC Staff
Yeah.
Appreciation Banquet on December 1st at Wyndham Garden. Just RSVP if you haven't already, so you can get a count. And then also just wanted to let you know that the PC training that's being held here on November 28th by PSATs. We have 10 people attending. There's Susan and Lindsay, Sharon, I, and Mark are all attending. And then I think 6 out of the 8 planning commissioners are signed up to attend as well. So if my math is wrong, more than 10. So that's good. I think it'll be a great training.
Yeah, and I just want to take the opportunity to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, those listening and those in the room, right? So we will be a week from today, so, okay. Final motion from anyone?
Move to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.